Hey everybody, it's Norm from Tested here at this year's WonderFest convention with Jason Eaton. Jason.
Good to see you again.
Great to see you. You are really an overachiever.
Guilty, yeah.
Not only are you helping organize and bring a lot of model makers from all across the country together to showcase their projects, but you're bringing new projects of your own.
Fun little things that happened despite my best intentions.
Oh, so humble. So I want to talk about some of your projects that you are new for this year.
Yeah.
Let's start here because this is from Blade Runner.
Blade Runner Hades landscape.
The Hades landscape, which, okay, explain to me that landscape. It's the opening shot, right? It's a miniature shot.
Yeah, and it is, the majority of it is, I don't know if it's, you would say forced perspective maybe, but it's all just photo etch brass and little lights and detail. But the towers themselves were, two-dimensional, and it's just the silhouettes that you're seeing because it's dark and it's atmospheric. There were a couple, I guess you'd call them hero smokestacks, that were literally just clamped to C-stands in the foreground. They weren't attached to anything, but they added actual depth, and they're the first ones you see when they're flying in.
So it's Tyrell Pyramid in the back, which is that's all the fiber optics, the one that's in New York right now. But vast majority of that, I think, we got a chance to see it, I think, at Prop Store. Very tiny. Oh, yeah. Just 2D.
Yeah, even I have a unused sheet of the etch, so they made a lot of it.
Yeah.
It's filtered through the years. Yeah.
Okay, so you took those silhouettes, that inspiration.
Yeah, and just made it up. But I wanted to sort of try to get as close to the atmosphere of that beginning as possible. And it honestly started because I have a big bin of offcuts of different size pieces of brass. None of them are labeled, and I'm like, I could make a Hades. I had made a single tower before, but I wanted to make like a big spread that would sit on my shelf at home and just be kind of fun.
Okay, let's talk through the construction of this, like using a tower.
Yeah, so I knew the original like Hades as it is pretty flat, almost like a board cube without the detail, but the depth doesn't go down very far. For this, I wanted to sort of expand that and just go down, down, down. And I liked the idea of using model kit parts that aren't donors for other projects, but are still interesting shapes. So using that up. Different layers of lights and different colors of lights, so you could sort of see underneath stuff and just make it look, gritty and like dystopian and who doesn't like to make a factory floor from time to time?
Can you point out some parts that are model kit parts versus parts that
it's almost all model kit parts. I have a friend of mine sculpted all of the fireball belches, and I printed them in clear. And all of the lights, some of the lights strobe, some of them breathe, some of them sort of wink on and off. So yeah, it's funny, this is a railgun part, which is a pretty famous donor from a lot of the classic sci-fi models, but this is a 1/35th version as opposed to 1/72nd. So I had purchased it just to use this big, chunky, interesting shapes. And just when building it, I'm thinking about, like, would this need a little pressure valve? Would it need, to be fed by something? Is it processing gases? Like, I just wanted to make it look like it was doing something.
Yeah. And the truss gives you the scale.
Yeah.
A little bit of that.
Yeah.
I love the depth. You talked about going down, but you have the staggered, pillars here.
Yeah.
But the lighting, I think, really light. The longer I look at it, I'm noticing not at first, of course, drawn to the red of the smoke. But the different luminances and the different twinkles.
I wanted to give it like a little atmosphere with light, if possible. Some of it's like a happy accident. You're like, oh, that works. And then you keep adding more of that. And, the inside's like a lot of like grays and a surprising amount of browns. And then this outer case that I made, I wanted to differentiate it. It's a little hard to see in this lighting, but it's like gunmetal. I rub flat black with graphite, so it's got like a little silver to it.
And pockets of light in here as well.
Yeah. And some is warm and some is cool, so you get just like a little texture, color-wise. And then these tiles, I just designed something that felt like it could be Frank Lloyd Wright, Ennis Brown, but then also have that Turrell owl motif on the very front one, just to make the box, feel like it's containing a little vignette story.
Have you had a chance to put some fog or smoke through it?
No, I need to get some dry ice. I need to order some meat online and get some dry ice so I can, stage that photo. I did take pictures and it's on my website, but it's just the model.
And you mentioned some gunmetal. I mean, the longer you look, it's not black. It's not a matte.
Yeah.
There's so many touches of rust.
And I added the Weyland-Yutani scarab wings in a couple places. The
canonical.
We all sort of think it's the shared universe, but I just
according to the DVD extras.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's some people who probably, like don't agree, but I feel like they really fit well together.
Wow.
So
that's a great project.
Yeah. Thank you.
Moving on to from the gritty and the dirty of Blade Runner to something clean.
Oh, I don't do clean models. This was terrifying.
Tell me about this, because this is kind of a famous model.
Yeah. It every once in a while somebody says, "Why don't you make a Star Trek model?" And I'm kind of a sarcastic person by nature, so I'm like, "Oh, fine, I'll make a Star Trek model." It's that thing that's in all the episodes, but it doesn't do anything, And it's just a prop that was in a prop rental place, Modern Props. A fellow named, I think, John Zabrucky owned the company and made this thing. So I decided to call it the Zabruckytron, like the Mellotron,
So was it made originally as a prop or an instrument or a piece of...
I don't exactly know. I think it was just like, futuristic looking scientific instrument of unknown use or whatever,
Right.
and it was very cool, and it kept getting rented, and so it shows up in Buck Rogers, Airplane 2, all the Star Treks. It's everywhere. Yeah. And so there's these filament wires, which are like micro LEDs in a silicon tube.
Yes.
And I thought, okay, that would mimic
so bright.
The neon.
Yes.
Yeah. And I had a friend, Randy at Voodoo FX, make this board for me with old school like tech sort of solenoids. So it's firing randomly, but it makes like this cool, weird clicking sound. And so for the show, I didn't want it to be on the whole time, clicking obnoxiously and driving people nuts. So I made a little box that people can come up and push the button.
Can we push the button?
Please push the button and hold it down.
Oh, wow. And yes, I can tell that telltale pattern of the silicone LED.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But it's as close as I'm going to get to neon in that scale. So I was like, I think it's kind of perfect. It's better than EL wire.
And your reference for this is just screen grabs from those
Yeah, there have been a couple of people that have made 3D files of it, but I was going for a very specific state it was in, and it changes over the years. So I just drew it up in Rhino, and a little bit of a challenge, but I love that. Yeah.
So next time you see this pop in the background, it's the real one's this it's pretty big.
Yeah, you see it everywhere. Yeah. There's always somebody from Starfleet noodling with it, or
in the background. Yes, it says high technology.
Yeah.
Okay, from Star Trek back to Star Wars, of course.
Of course.
Back to your comfort zone.
Yeah. That was close. Yeah.
Something from Hoth?
Maybe. So a friend of mine, old ILMer, has what we think an unpublished Ralph McQuarrie drawing. It just in with his ephemera. It wasn't signed, but you look at it and you're like, I don't think that's Joe Johnson. I'm pretty sure that's a McQuarrie. And it was in with a whole bunch of Empire Strikes Back stuff. So we know it's from that production. It's just this little moment in time from his desk that he probably swept into a pile, and it was kept. And I fell in love with it, so I just decided to make a cool little maquette, And I was talking to my friend Gene, and he was like, it could be from Hoth, it could be from Bestman, I could see it going either way. He's like, it almost looks like a radome, and there was a Hoth planetary defense thing that was never, he said it was in a script, but it was never shot as a sequence, and so that could have been a design study for something that got tossed aside. Could just be a building, but I thought it looks like it might be like a radar, So
you're doing a little bit of storytelling.
Yeah.
Tale as old time. Model maker falls in love with a piece of concept art. You have to.
Then I have to make up
it.
why.
Yes. Yeah. And then choosing this scale in particular, you just wanted something.
I wanted something that would grow on the Form 3 without having to sand together. So I just like, that's a good size for the bed. Yeah.
I can kind of see
and then
that.
and then thinking about it, like how big do I want to devote to this wacky little 8 inches base? That's a good size.
I mean, you dabble in all the processes, it sounds like. I know I'm following your work, going from scratch building, kit bashing, to 3D printing now, just adopting whatever makes sense.
Yeah, and the moisture evaporators are all 3D printed completely. So, except for it was dressed with little styrene bits.
That's what I'm saying. Like you still want that handmade look. How do you try to...
The most fun is the analog, cutting something off a sprue, finding a good spot for it. Like that's what I live for. But I love the moisture evaporators. They're kind of like the unsung totem of Tatooine. It's very iconic. Yeah. And a lot of times when I see somebody make one, they feel off to me, which I'm like, there's a blueprint. You can do it right if you just look at the blueprint. So I decided to make one from the blueprint, and then comparing it to other photographs, I started researching moisture evaporators because that's where my life is now.
How do you find the time, Jason?
I don't know. But then you start realizing there's only like a certain amount of material that they kept reconfiguring, for the streets of Tatooine, for the, the farm. And this is the one that sits in the pit at the Lars family homestead. So there's a lot of parts that I now recognize because I've been studying it, like that show up on the street just in the corner. So I just love that like reuse of shape. And I guess Roger Christensen probably had done all that. But yeah, there's a couple angles that you can't quite get that aren't in the movie and aren't in the making of material. So I got to riff, which I love. Yeah.
Is this a riff?
That's not. That is actually just sitting in there on a pile of trash.
Really?
It looks like. Yeah. If you look at the stills from the production or watch the movie, it all pretty much lines up. I was pretty pleased because sometimes you can't rectify it for whatever reason, but this all sort of locked into place.
And that gives you scale again, how fine that works in.
Yeah.
Wow. Is there a scale that you like working in? Obviously, studio scale is something we're going to talk about. But...
Yeah, so that's 1/12 scale. 1/12. And I just decided because Bondi has little droids, 1/12 would be nice to sort of conform to. And then, like, if I keep making little, I love Tatooine aesthetically. So if I keep making little things from there, it's all going to like be cohesive, which is tickles a itch or whatever.
Well, it's fantastic. Great work this year, Jason.
Thank you.
I mean, new stuff. This plus the other things you're doing.
Yeah, none of this existed like 8 months ago or whatever. It's kind of terrifying. Actually, no, I made that during the shutdown.
Incredible.
The evaporator.
Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching that video. I want to tell you about our demerit badges because we know that being a maker is a lifelong enterprise of trying new things and learning new skills, and it is also about repeatedly messing everything up. And we like to celebrate that because failure is not just an option, it is intrinsic to the creative process. And to that end, we have 3 new bundles of demerit badges right now on tested-store.com. We've got your Shop Tool Fails demerit badge bundle up here on top. Here in the middle, we have the Everyday Whoops demerit badge bundle. And at the bottom, we've got my favorite, the Shit Happens demerit badge bundle. You can get any one of these bundles, and we are considering offering a bundle of all 24, not those, of all 24 demerit badges we have released, but we're not sure what to call it. You have a suggestion? Put it in the comments.